Hi guys, Tiaza here from FreeBellyDanceClasses.com. Today I'm doing a video where I'm going to be talking a little bit to you guys about the different styles in belly dancing. It seems like to be a question that comes up all the time, and people are asking me what my style is, or what are the different styles that they need to know about, and so on. So I just thought I'll do a video and we'll talk a little bit. The talk is going to obviously be a little bit long because there is so much to say. So feel free to pause, start the video whenever you'd like, okay? Okay, so first of all, not everybody agrees on what styles there are or how many even there are. So if I tell you guys something, don't hold me to it as that's the answer, okay? Because there's so many different styles out there, and there's styles within the styles, and different people will tell you different stories about what they think there are, you know, the different styles of belly dancing are. So for me, I think when I think of the art of belly dancing and the different ways it's done, I usually think of the traditional styles that come from the Arab world, which are the Egyptian style, the Turkish, Lebanese, Iraqi, and Moroccan, or what we like to call North African, Moroccan, Algerian, Tunisian as well. And those are different as well. So if you're an Arab and if you talk to an Arab person, that's usually what they will talk about. They'll talk about Egyptian. And within the Egyptian, you know, they'll say there is classical, there is modern, and then there's the Lebanese, the Iraqi, the North African. But then if you're talking to somebody from the West or usually outside the Arab world, they would add other things to it like tribal. Okay. So, and then if you talk to tribal dancers, they will be like, okay, well, there is the American tribal style that started back in like the 60s, and then they decided there is a tribal fusion, there is a tribanet, which is like tribarette, sorry, which is like a mix of cabaret and tribal. So even within different countries and within different styles, everybody's gonna talk about their own different styles there, okay? So let's break it down for you guys style by style what the difference is. So let's talk first about what we call the Egyptian style. First of all, Egyptian style is usually referred to as Egyptian only in the West, okay? If you're in the US or Europe, we say Egyptian style for what Arabs tend to call Oriental dance. So if you're an Arab, you can get away with just saying Oriental dance and everybody knows what you're talking about. Usually it's the Egyptian style, because if you are Moroccan, for example, and you say Oriental, you actually mean the Egyptian style. And then if you're Lebanese and say Oriental, you mean the Egyptian style. In Latin America, they say a lot danza árabe or danza oriental. So they refer to it as the Arab dance or the Oriental dance. Okay, but in the West, usually mostly in the U.S., when we say Oriental dance, you know, it could mean a lot of things. So we usually refer to the Egyptian style by we're just saying by calling it Egyptian. Okay, to make it different from, you know, the Lebanese and so on. So the Egyptian style, actually, within the Egyptian style, there is usually the classical and there is the modern. The classical tends to be very slow, very grounded. The dancer is usually more covered, so you see the longer dresses rather than the two pieces, you know, top and belt type of deal. So there's usually more covered costumes, and the music is really slow, and it's usually the classical, older music of Egypt, or the newer classical as well. And it's with the classical Egyptian, the expression, the feeling, and expressing the song itself, the lyrics of the song, is much more important than the music. Okay, so you would see even dancers sometimes actually cry if the song is sad. So, you know, like losing a lover or whatever the song is about. So those emotions are transferred in the movement, and it's not very jumpy, it's not very athletic, it's not very cabaret style, and it's not necessarily meant to be done to entertain an audience. It's not something you would do in restaurants, for example, or so on. It's something you would do on stage. It's something you would do, you know, there's family gatherings, things like that. But then there is also the modern style, the modern Egyptian style, which is actually the most common right now, which sometimes people like to call the Egyptian cabaret, or they'll call it the Egyptian nightclub style. It's usually done to more like the pop Egyptian music, things like, you know, songs like from Hakim, for example, who's one of the biggest pop singers. So it's very jumpy, it's very showy, it's very entertainment driven, and so the costumes reflect that as well. So there's like big beads. They're very sexy, um, very revealing. You know, if you see like the style of Dina, for example, of dressing, that's very cabaret, very modern Egyptian. Although she does dance a lot to classical as well, classical music. So it's very much entertainment driven, and it is definitely what you see in the nightclubs. It's what you see in restaurants and in hotel parties and so on for tourists. But it's not something that Egyptian people usually kind of care about too much. Okay, they like to see more of the classical performance style than the new pop cabaret nightclub style. Um, the music is also very fast. It tends to be a lot of like fast fours and fast eights, um, and it's it could be also remixed with different styles of music from the rest of the world. So you'll see some hip hop thrown in there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's performed to songs from Egyptian songs, but it could also be performed to modern pop, Lebanese and Syrian and so on. So that's the Egyptian style with its modern and classical. Now let's talk about the Lebanese style. The Lebanese style is actually fun, and it's possibly the most viewed for entertainment in the Arab world in the Middle East. It is not a style by itself in a sense that they have different moves, but it borrowed from different styles. It borrowed from the Turkish and the Egyptian and the Moroccan, and added a little bit of touch to it. And a touch that the Lebanese added is a little bit more um, revealed sexiness, I could call it. You know, it's very naughty and it's openly naughty. Whereas in Egypt, you know, there's a lot of moves you can't do on stage. You know, things like floor work, you cannot do that in Egypt because that's considered like too sexual, and in fact you can be arrested for it if you perform that way. Whereas in Lebanon, you know, those things are common, so you see a lot of floor work, you see a lot of drops down to the floor, you know, like what I call in my choreographies the Lebanese drop a lot. So you see a lot of that, and because of that naughtiness that's associated with it, the costumes of course reflect that as well. So they're more like nightclub style, the two-piece top and bottom, and also the use of a lot of sheer fabric, so you can really see through. So they have a lot of see-through skirts with like shorts underneath, so they created the whole idea of wearing shorts with a little loose see-through skirt on top. And they also wear high heels a lot with the costume. So wearing high heels is like super common in Lebanon, Lebanese style, and also the Iraqi style. So that kind of differentiates the look a lot of the Lebanese compared to the Egyptian. It is mostly performed to pop Lebanese. We hardly ever talk as Arabs about classical Lebanese. We talk mostly about just Lebanese style, and that means usually something that's performed to the modern pop Lebanese songs, because it's very nightclub driven, it's very entertainment driven, and it's performed a lot in like game shows on TV, night talk shows on television, things like that in Lebanon. So when we talk about the Lebanese style, there's really usually no distinction between classical and modern. It's all pretty much modern. The Turkish style. The Turkish style is almost like the opposite, if you think about it, the opposite of the classical Egyptian. It's not grounded and subtle. It's very acrobatic. It's very jumpy. Dancer moves a lot. You know, if you see something like what we call the Turkish chuchu shimi, for example, it's very fast and you move around with it a lot, unlike the Egyptian shimi, which is a much more grounded shimi. So it's a very entertainment driven, it's very nightclub, very cabaret style. And of course, that reflects in the costuming as well. So they're very revealing with the big opening, you know, see a lot of legs, things like that. They wear a lot of high heels as well because it's just very show-like. So you have to have everything that goes along with the costume, from beautiful jewelry, the perfect hair, perfect high heels, almost like you're wearing a beautiful dress, you know, to go on a, I don't know, the red carpet or whatever, but they, you know, they make that into a belly dance costume sort of. The music also is very different. If you hear a lot of Turkish music, you'll notice that there's a lot of clarinet, a lot of qanun, a lot of flute. So in that sense, it's a little different. So there's a little bit more melody than beat, you know. Whereas in Egyptian, there's a lot of beat because it's like bum 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 constantly. Whereas in Turkish, it's like a lot of so the beat is like within the melody, but the melody is usually stronger. The count also of the beat in the music is very different than the Egyptian style, for example. A lot of the Egyptian is like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 or 1 2 3 4. In the Turkish style, you'll see a lot of fives and threes and sixes, kind of like the Moroccan style. So that makes it a little bit of a tricky style to dance to if you are not used to it, and it does require that you listen to the music very well and get used to the Turkish music before you can perform it. But it's a fun, actually, style of dance. It's very, very fun. Um, there was a little bit of a switch to it at some point when the gypsies started incorporating their style. So like you hear a lot about the gypsy style, which is like truly like a gypsy Turkish style. So like the gypsies include like the big skirts, and so all these different big skirt moves to it. So that's a little bit of a different touch to the cabaret style that is very common. And it's performed a lot in parties and weddings, in a lot of touristic places, restaurants, hotels, and so on. Been also a lot in TV shows. You see a lot of TV shows have a belly dancers, like take a little break and have a belly dancer. Didem, for example, the Turkish belly dancer, that's kind of how she had her start, was, in a TV show, and she still does that a lot. So it's very mainstream, but it's not in a sense of like family gatherings like it would be in Egypt. It's mostly family parties. So like if you have a big wedding, things like that, then you'll have an entertainer or a belly dancer. But if you just get in the families to get together, people don't just get up and belly dance like they would be the case in Egypt. So it's not really necessarily like a deep family cultural thing yet, but it's definitely accepted in the mainstream entertainment level. The Moroccan style, or Algerian, or North African in general, is pretty much the same. You can describe all those countries as being the same. Tunisian as well. These North African styles are truly the origin of the tribal style in the U.S. that started in the U.S. It's very tribalish because of the Berbers, the natives of North Africa. The Berber dances are completely different from the Oriental Arab dance as known in the Middle East. And so when Arabs in North Africa borrowed the style of belly dancing and incorporated it as part of their dance culture, they mixed it a little bit with the African Berber dances that are native to the countries. And so there's a lot of twisting motions, like for example, what we refer to as the Tunisian chimi. There is a lot of hip twisting that's kind of more like a walking forward type of move, because the Berbers do a lot of like line dancing, and so there's usually one line of guys and then one line of girls in front of them, and then they move together by kind of twisting the hip like this. So that's where the three-quarter shimmy came from, or the Hagala walk came from. Is actually a North African move that's originally a Berber move. So there's a lot of like mixtures of these two styles, but he made it so there were a lot of the originally Berber moves that were kind of adapted to belly dancing, like the three-quarter shimmy and the Hagala. And the Tunisian twist, or the Tunisian chimi. But then also the costuming is very different in North Africa because it has that touch of still the Berber touch with the big silver jewelry and so on, which was borrowed as a look in the U.S. and became part of the tribal look. The big silver jewelry, which is very common in Berber dancing, or the Berbers actually of North Africa all wear that jewelry on a daily basis in general. So the look was borrowed. Some of the moves kind of got mixed together with the traditional styles, but the music is different as well. If you look at North Africa, for example, there's so many different styles of music. You have the classical, of course, which is kind of similar to the classical Egyptian. So when you perform you're performing the same way as you would perform if you do it like an Egyptian style. So it's very expressive, very emotional. But then you have also the pop, and the pop is more like, it was what we call the shabi in North Africa, which means popular, shabi. It's very much like pop in classical in Egypt. So it's very upbeat, very fast, very party-like, very wedding-like, very entertainment-like. And so of course the moves really don't change when you perform to that kind of music, but they just become faster and more exaggerated. Because the music itself becomes a lot faster than the traditional style. There is, you have other styles like Rai, for example. Rai is very sharp moves, very, very tend to be a little bit slow, but it could also be fast. But it's predominantly a slow dance. But you don't really see a lot of North Africans dance to that music because it's not very it's not like the happy entertainment type music. Okay, Rai is actually very much into like discussing social issues and things like that. Um, and so it's not really necessarily the best lyrics to dance to, okay, but you will find some dancers that might perform to it as a statement about whatever topic is discussed in the song. The music is also different as far as count. You see a lot of sixes, a lot of nines, a lot of threes in North African music, which is very much unlike what you would see in classical or modern Egyptian, which is a lot of fours and a lot of fours and eights. So that, of course, affects how you dancing to that music. And then, of course, you have the new style that's been invented in the U.S., which is the tribal style. You can talk forever about the tribal style, and I will probably make another video. So to make this one too long, I'll make probably another video just talking about the different styles within the tribal style and the history of it and how it actually changed dance or belly dancing in the West, and the different opinions that different people have about this style, because there's just so much talk about it, and not a lot of people agree about everything in the tribal style. But the tribal style originally started in the 50s, I believe, or the 60s. It was when the hippie movement started, and people were like adapting to music from other countries and dances from other countries. And it started in San Francisco with fat chest belly dance style. Obviously it wasn't the fat chest belly dance necessarily that started, but it was that kind of style that they do now. Is really how tribal started, which is referred to usually as the ETS, or the American tribal style, which is really different from what we see today, which is taking the tribal style more to like what a lot of dancers now would just refer to themselves as fusion dancers or tribal dancers instead of calling themselves belly dancers altogether. So a lot of tribal dancers are moving out of the whole name of I'm tribal belly dancer to calling themselves I'm a tribal dancer, or I'm just a fusion dancer. And it changed quite a bit. What started in San Francisco is now completely different. You have the what I might just willingly call it the traditional tribal belly dance. Would be like the style of somebody like Rachel Bryce, for example, which was kind of like more of the modern version of the old ATS. And then ATS, of course, is still around. But then you have also, the tribal dancers that took it to the next level of like total fusion with really weird kind of like new age music that has absolutely nothing to do with Middle Eastern music. And and they took it to this more like a goth look, so they adapted all that goth look. And then you have other tribal dancers that like kind of like mixing a more Indian look to that, more Indian fusion music. And then you have other dancers that, totally made it more like the modern style of dance. Like if you hear like ballet, jazz, modern, they kind of made it almost look like that and feel like that in the way they dance. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, it really changed quite a bit within the last 2 years, and being like one of the newest versions, if you can call it that way, of belly dancing. It changed quite a bit since then. And you have also the East Coast now versus West Coast styles. So there's just so much really to talk about when it comes to tribal, and we'll do another video in the future again. But this was just kind of like a quick wrap up to kind of give you a feel of what the different styles actually sound like and feel like. And we'll talk a little bit more about the tribal. So hopefully that was helpful for those of you who had the questions. I'll see you guys next time on freebellydanceclasses.com for more choreographies videos, technique videos, combos, etc. So keep on dancing, keep on watching. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching this long video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.